What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video on What If Deku Was the Avatar Part 12. Now, before we jump into this, let's start off with our channel announcements, whatever you want to call them. So, I want to say thank you. We got past 850. We're currently on 869. Nice. But I want to say thank you guys for you guys liking and subscribing. I don't think we could have made it this far without you guys. So, in return, I have plans for when we reach 1000k. I know. I've had these plans in the work for a while now. Well, actually, my second one came sooner than my first, but yeah, I do have a plan. I always got plans. Big plans. No, I'm joking. But my first plan is that we'll start putting out 2 videos for that week after we reach 1,000. So say if we reached 1,000 this week, next week we'll put out 2 videos every single day. And I figured you guys would like that, for a week long, put out 2 videos. Now, I don't know when the videos would come out on the second video, because the first video tends to come out around noon. So the second video might come around noon, or it might come later. It all just depends on, well, how it works out, okay? And the second thing that I also have planned, this one I've had in the works for a while, is going to be like a small offshoot video. And I figured you guys would, well, like it. So, now let's get into the next part of this, which is the Discord shoutouts. Now, I am going to start off by apologizing to these 2 people because they have commented down in the comment section saying that I've missed them. So I do want to say I am sorry, Akira Kayuko, if that's how you pronounce your name. I'm sorry, I have missed you. And Person, I'm sorry I've missed you. Thank you to both joining the Discord. And now let's start off with joining the Discord. People just regularly joining the Discord. Starting from the top, we got Lazar Darf, Deku-kun, Humbug 7890, Jobro, Fainted Owen, Cool Dude, Refrig, Iswell, AOD, SCP-682 and SCP-999, Ghost 200, 7533, Deku Destroyer 1997, Marf, Joshua Johnson, Silver Moon Gaming, Cumloader, Hayato, Ultimate Gamer, SageX, Guy1, Tox1C or Toxic, Crimson Demon King, my bad, and Exotic Butters Our Life for joining the Discord. Now, you guys might be wondering what's the Discord. Well, go down in the link description down below. There's a Discord there. Tons of nice people there. Chat, have fun. Even I chat on there eventually. Probably. Definitely. And eventually I will chat. Even though it might seem kind of distant, I do watch the Discord and I read every single message y'all send. And I join in if I'm awake or if I'm paying attention. As you guys know, for the last couple days I've been kind of sick, and I've still been kind of sick. I still have a sore throat. But I'll keep pushing through and uploading for you guys. So, I've been sleeping a lot, and I've had missed out on some of my Discord messages. Sorry to my Discord homies out there. But, like I said, go join the Discord down in the description down below. And go check out the artist. Oh, wait, there was an artist on this one? My bad, I retract my statement on the artist part. Yeah. Lol. Okay. Let's jump straight into this what if. After last time, where Deku had easily won the entire, well, I guess the best way to put it, sports festival with relatively ease. Deku was preparing to, well, go back to the spirit world. He started stacking things up. Aizawa was kind of confused, but Gran Torino had already understood why Deku was going back to the spirit world. Deku had kind of filled in All Might as well, so All Might knew as well. All the kids were kind of confused when they saw this weird bison beaver looking thing fly in. Most of the kids got kind of freaked out by it. Deku told them to calm down, and he was safe and harmless. Deku then hopped on to his bison. Most of the stuff was loaded up, and even though the bison was still juvenile, Deku could fly on it for the most part without too many difficulties or issues. Eventually, before he left, not people. God, I'm horrible today. Eventually, All Might and some of the other teachers came out. All Might had already knew Deku was heading back because of his earlier interactions with Izuku, and everyone else kind of knew the same thing too. It was common knowledge that Izuku did separate training from everyone else mainly because of his quirks. Well, intense strength, being heavily stronger than almost any other person's quirk. Literally, All Might wondered if he could fight Deku at max power without, well, getting kind of messed up, to put it in the easiest way. Deku smiled at all of them and wished them all goodbye. But then he was stopped by Aizawa, which quickly pulled Deku off of his thing, causing Deku to fall on his butt, kind of confusing everyone. And then Aizawa said, "You think you just get to go run off? Nah, you have stuff you have to do." And Deku looks at Aizawa kind of confusingly. He's like, "Stuff? What stuff do I have to do?" "What stuff? How about you need to actually go fill out your hero forms? And I don't even know who this Tenzin guy is. As your main instructor, I think it's pretty important for me to know who you're interning with." Izuku kind of understood what Aizawa was talking about and kind of felt like, yeah, maybe it might be just a tiny bit important to let them know about what's going on before I just, leave. Afterwards, Izuku then ended up filling out his stuff. Aizawa got to, know who his student was tutoring under now. And by no, he really didn't get to know. It was more of he got information about who the personnel was and had to suck it up, because none of the other teachers knew anything else. Izuku chose the name the Avatar for obvious reasons, seeing how he was the Avatar and the master of the four elements. He figured the name would be, quite befitting. Afterwards, Izuku had hopped on to his air bison and left. Of course, his raccoon was with him. His flying raccoon was with him as well. Eventually, Deku headed into the spirit realm and flew past an odd-looking tree. The tree was at the center, and if Deku had remembered correctly, Korra said that it used to contain an evil spirit who embodied the darkness and hatred and everything wrong with the world. Izuku really didn't think much of the tree while he passed by, as he quickly prepared to get to the air temple. Izuku finally showed up after taking a little bit longer than he would have liked. After showing up, he realized that no one was there to greet him, which kind of confused Izuku a little bit. He looked around to see if anyone was really there. Eventually, he found Tenzin, and Tenzin said, "Oh, Izuku, most of the air nomads are out. I see you're back. It's been a while." And Izuku agreed, saying that it had been a pretty long time since he had last been here. Tenzin responded with, "Yes, it has." "Well, it hasn't really been a long time. It's only been about 2 or so weeks." Which Izuku still counted as a long time for various reasons, especially with hopping through dimensions and conjoints. Afterwards, Izuku eventually found himself a room that he was permitted with. It was his room inside the air temple, which only had strict permission for him to be used. Izuku thanked Tenzin as he prepared for the room. Izuku looked around and noticed that most of the people there were all kind of pretty happy and peaceful. It doesn't look like they had adopted the air nomad style entirely, but seems like most of them kind of adapted to being an air nomad. Maybe it was just how they wanted to live? Or is it something else? Izuku sighed at the realization that he was trying to peer into someone else's, life, and realized that that really wasn't a cool thing to do, so he decided against it. Izuku eventually ended up sitting down and chilling. He was thinking about trying to improve airbending even more, and when he was thinking about it, he figured, air itself is oxygen, hydrogen, and multiple other different gases. Now, under what I've noticed, it seems we can control all gases using airbending, or at least all gases I've tried. Then again, I haven't really tried much else than air itself. But maybe there is other gases we control that aren't air? Deku sighed, realizing that the question he was asking was a lot more difficult than how he would like it to be. Deku eventually just decided to go along with it. So Deku sat down for a second and was thinking about how airbending works. What is airbending and what airbending is? Izuku eventually started talking out loud and remembered something in science class. In science class, sound is the vibration of air. So that means Izuku could theoretically control sound with his own air itself. He's already had marginal success by blocking out sound, but maybe he can create sound as well? Izuku found this premise to be quite interesting, and he slowly started to train with it. His first objective was to not create sound, but just to block sound entirely. How does it work? How do you block sound? Izuku thought. Izuku realized that blocking sound itself isn't the difficult part. The difficult part is more or less blocking sound in an accurate manner, which confused most people. Izuku eventually came to Tenzin wanting some assistance in his new idea for airbending. Tenzin, being excited that Izuku would ask him for assistance, especially because to Tenzin, Izuku's like an airbending prodigy, pushing the element farther than it has ever been before in the past by any previous airbender, even Aang. Was delighted when Izuku asked him for help. Izuku started to explain the concepts of sound and how it works, and Tenzin was immediately confused. Deku kind of expected Tenzin to be confused because the process of air and all of that and how it moves and how it reacts to sound and how it reacts to certain things but doesn't react to other things the same way. And just a lot of science mumbo-jumbo really wasn't Tenzin's cup of tea, as Izuku put it. Izuku eventually ended up walking around the manor. or the temple. And then he ended up eventually finding Janora. Janora really didn't know sound either and couldn't really wrap her head around it either. So Izuku kind of sighed at this as he started to use compression bending, and he figured, wait a minute, if I could teach compression bending, then teaching basic sound shouldn't be too hard. Izuku using compression bending used it as kind of like a tool to teach the air nomads, well at least Tenzin and Janora, how sound works. Eventually, Izuku got to the point where he could actually materialize what a frequency wave looked like. Of course, the frequency wave itself didn't produce any sound, but he can materialize it, which was a big step up for Izuku, who was still trying to master sound bending or see if the base concept of sound bending would even work. Eventually, Izuku finally came to the conclusion that, yeah, he could get sound bending to work. It's gonna take him a while, but he could. Izuku then trained on it for the next 2 weeks. And then he finally made a breakthrough. He could actually manipulate and control sound. Izuku ended up searching up a lot of things about sound and made a trip about a week into his stay back over to his world to help gather more information about sound itself, to lessen the blow of Izuku having to study everything himself. Tenzin had allowed this and hadn't accompanied him, mainly because of the fear that something bad could still happen to either him, his daughters, or any of the other airbenders, deciding not to test what little population they have. Even with all the extra airbenders, there's still not that much. Tenzin decided to just let Izuku go solo. Izuku eventually made it there, and after discussing some things with his mentors back there, they had all thought that sound bending was kind of outrageous. You know, the aspect of someone being able to manipulate sound, well, is kind of weird. Now, they didn't believe Izuku couldn't do it. Like, they've seen what the boy has done before. They just found Izuku's understanding of it to be a little bit weird. It's not like he was trying to manipulate sound. It was like he was trying to manipulate air and use air manipulation to encompass sound manipulation. Which, and granted, Izuku eventually realized that's what he was trying to do. He wasn't really trying to manipulate air. Sound. He was trying to manipulate air and get it to function as sound. Now, Izuku had already known that his airbending can function as sound and, has functioned as sound before, but he didn't know if he could accurately use sound bending as he was thinking of it now. So Izuku eventually, by taking books and reading, came to the conclusion and understanding that sound itself is air, but air is not sound. Now you might be kind of confused by that. How is sound is air, but air is not sound? Well, sound travels through air, and even though air is air, sound isn't air. Now this might be confusing again, but Izuku decided that that's how he was going to imagine it. Sound is air, but air is not sound. Which confused almost anyone he was talking about when it came to sound bending, or what he has dubbed to be named as sound bending. Even though the philosophy of sound bending hasn't came through yet at all, and hasn't been finished at all, it was still his working project. But then that fateful day had happened where Izuku had broken through and learned how to manipulate sound. Afterwards, his sound manipulation didn't skyrocket per se, but it got better, way better. He started to be able to mimic sound, and eventually, throughout enough work, started to be able to feel sound, almost like echolocation at a higher, more determinate degree. So much so to the point where Izuku could basically play echolocation, which he thought was pretty cool. Granted, echolocation, of course, is cool, but Izuku thought what he was doing was amazing. And most of the other airbenders did too. Most of them, don't get it wrong, could use airbending. That's just an innate feature of airbending, is to some sort of degree sound bending, which is kind of weird when you think about it. Eventually, Izuku came to the point of being able to do it almost like secondhand, like he always had sound bending activated. He slowly started to increase the size of his sound hearing to a larger and larger decay over time. Eventually, it got so large to where Izuku could hear almost anything about 2 kilometers away from him. He could easily be able to hear conversations in the next room, much less 2 kilometers. And Izuku kind of liked this. This gave him so much sensory awareness that if a villain were to even try to sneak up on him, they would have no chance. Izuku then ended up deciding that his power was pretty impressive, and he started to teach it to the other airbenders. See, the other airbenders there were all pretty impressed by Izuku's capabilities just by showing it, much less actually being able to use it. But all of them were kind of questioning, well, what other use would sound bending have? And Izuku was thinking about it, because this was a question of his own. Sound bending is a unique skill. It's a very good skill, in his opinion, for sensory awareness. But for airbenders that don't fight, the skill itself is somewhat lacking. So while Izuku was thinking about it, then he thought of something. He said, well, you see, there's a very certain specific thing, okay? And what's this specific thing, the airbenders said? Well, you see, sound bending, you can make very high frequencies that could hurt opponents' ears, as well as you can make soundproof rooms so you can carry out conversations in quiet and silence. Or you could make a thing that makes you basically immune to any sound-based attack. Or you could do it to where you can make multiple different safe locations. Everyone was listening to Izuku explain the different things that sound bending itself provided solo, not without the use of anything else. Which everyone else thought was, whoa, not really as much as amazing as some of the other things Izuku was doing, but thought it was a very cool thing itself. Sound bending kind of opens the gate to a whole entire different type of bending. Type of bending that no one had really thought about before, mainly because the aspect of it at base didn't make a whole lot of sense. But now that Izuku had kind of pushed open the door to reveal a whole entire new world, for lack of a better word, for most of the airbenders there, they were invigorated. Most of the airbenders started to practice with sound bending. Most of the ones that practice compression bending also practice airbending as well. But some of them practice multiple other things. Eventually, air nomads became known for multiple different types of bendings. more than one, more than two. They now are known for their sound bending as well. People eventually ended up understanding that Deku's unorthodox way of using airbending was kind of an issue. Now, most people might be confused by like a kind of an issue. What does that mean? Well, you see, Izuku's unorthodox way of bending kind of leads Izuku to be relatively like a game changer for air nomads. Air nomads really weren't known for their competitive prowess, but as Izuku has shown, air nomads could be the most deadliest personnel ever. Looking at Izuku's bending he's created compression bending and sound bending. Compression bending is a pretty cool bending art, allowing airbenders to compress the air around them to make, well, compressed attacks. But when you buckle it with sound bending, you could have an invisible, silent attack, and you can make yourself silent as well. Airbenders had easily created, well, for lack of a better word, a kind of like a murder, like an assassin set of bending types. All of Izuku's bending types were used mainly for primarily quiet, stealthy missions. Mainly because of the advantage the bending type kind of gave to airbenders. Now, none of the air nomads thought it was too bad of a thing. Mainly because, well, you know, it's the Avatar. If the Avatar came up with this, it can't be all bad. But some of the other people kind of started to realize that, yeah, Izuku's bending is kind of needs a little bit of restrictions. Because air nomads that have mastered all of both of Izuku's bending types and basic airbending become fluent enough in their capabilities to where they could take out almost anyone they need to. Not even lying. And this started to scare some of the air nomads. Not a much to like scare Izuku away, knowing that if they scare away an airbender that is known for creating bending arts that can be used stealthily and can murder people, yeah, that's not a good idea. But Izuku had an air of slightly devious intent. Eventually, Izuku found himself sleeping in his room, chilling and resting his eyes and going to bed. And that's where we're going to leave it off, guys. If you liked it, hit the like button. If you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button. Tell me what do you think of sound bending. Tell me why do you think Izuku had created two bending arts that seemed kind of malicious. And until next time, goodbye.